Now, if you wanted to, you can get a little bit nicer, higher quality rendering using the Arnold system. So again, I would basically hit Control-Shift-A, which selects all the mesh in the scene. And then right-click, Assign New Material. So just holding right-click, you can go Assign New Material. If you click on there's a little Arnold category, there is a very convenient AI, ambient occlusion material. So if I click on that, and I often will switch, I do like to kind of update my viewport, so you can actually switch your viewport rendering to Arnold and get kind of a quick preview of what that will look like. So yeah, basically you've got your samples. I'm going to just deselect things so we can kind of see that in the viewport. Or maybe just grab a single object so I can kind of have access and look at the material that way. So let's do that. I'm going to go now, I'll switch out of the Arnold viewport rendering back to traditional viewport. IPR is often a better way to kind of go with this. I find you just get better results and they're potentially a little bit faster. So if you wanted to, you can kind of zoom in. You know, things might be a bit noisy. So one way to sort of deal with this is try to increase the actual samples of the ambient occlusion itself. Typically, it's kind of limited by the render samples as well. So basically what samples means is how many sort of calculations will it make per ray, per light and shadow to sort of get you an accurate scene. And if you go into the render settings up here, F2, sorry, the render settings here, which is the clapperboard with the turquoise gear. If you go to Arnold Renderer, usually I'll increase the camera anti-alias and maybe the diffuse just by 1 or 2 samples. There's no specularity, there's no transmission, no subsurface, and there's no sort of indirect lighting in the scene. So you can actually speed up the render significantly. And if you take a look, the noise looks quite a bit better compared to before. So when you know kind of exactly what you're rendering, this can be useful. Yeah, maybe I'll increase diffuse by 1 more. Another cheat that I use, which again, because I'm doing a lot of quick client renders to just get them to sort of see what is happening in the scene, is that you can actually go into under Arnold Renderer. There's something called Imagers, and if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, which I believe we do on these machines, you can actually go into what's called denoiser optics. So once you have a render, right, it'll finish the render and basically denoise it. So you can sort of see before and after, much cleaner after, right? If you don't happen to have an NVIDIA graphics card, or if you get an error saying that, oh, you know, maybe this card's not supported, you can remove that imager. So I'll select it, say remove imager, or right-click remove. You can add, there's a sort of more universal denoiser by Arnold, which is called the noise denoiser. So we'll let that render. And it'll calculate again. Now you can also increase, kind of play with the settings here. If you have it selected, you can, you can increase the radius. So it's going to kind of like basically tweak that. And one other denoiser you can use, which also works quite well, is Odin. I think it's sort of an older style denoiser, but it also works quite as well, and it doesn't require NVIDIA graphics cards. But in this case, I'll probably use the optics, since I find it works the best for both speed and quality. So let me just get the full screen and sort of zoom out to my full render. There we go. So I'll go to File, Save As. File, Save Image. AO, hit Save. To do a wireframe render with Arnold, you do have to open up the Hypershade, which is up here. It's sort of like a sphere with a, sort of looks like a white, I don't know, kind of circle on top of it. And what you want to do is actually make sure your ambient occlusion is in here. So you click on your ambient occlusion material up in this sort of material workspace, and then I hit this sort of mapping input-output connections box, okay? So I'll click on that, which places it in here, and we sort of see there's what's called the shader, so it sort of contains all the information in there, and then the actual material itself, which has all the settings of the color, the spread, the shading. And then lastly, I'll go over to the left side here, click on the Arnold category, and you can also search for this. I'll just type in wireframe. So I'll left click and drag that out. And what I can do is actually, again, select all mesh objects in the scene, right click, assign existing, and you'll see AI wireframe. So then if I hit the IPR, you'll see it should render now. Yeah, just this kind of like wireframe. There are a few options I want to change. So I'm going to just, again, select one of the objects, switch to the wireframe render. I don't want triangles, I want polygons. So I don't want to see the triangles there, I just want to see the polygons. Again, hit render, right? So we do just see quads now. But again, it's flat. There's no ambient occlusion. So if you notice, there's kind of the fill color, right? So if I set this to, let's say, bright red and hit the IPR render, right? You'll see that's the fill color, right? So I'll switch the fill color. I'll actually load in. There's a little checker box, meaning I can actually load in, another material. So let me switch back to Hypershade here. So if you actually take the out color and put it into the fill color, you can actually left click and drag from the out color to the fill color. Sorry, let me try that again. Okay, oddly enough, yeah, when I tried to drag this out, it was refusing to connect until I actually just clicked on the AI wireframe. Sometimes you'll have to try it a different way. I clicked on the little checker box over here, which should allow me to then pick, again, I select Arnold, type in wireframe, or start to type in wireframe, and then you'll see it load there too, so you can have a replacement material. That's fine. Again, just make sure I'm on polygons for the wireframe. There's the ambient occlusion. Oops, sorry, I'm loading wireframe into wireframe. That's not what I wanted to do. So let me try that again. Ambient, there we go. I actually want to load ambient in there. There we go. So what'll happen now is that that fill color will be the ambient occlusion with the wireframe on top. So if I hit the IPR, now you'll see I get the best of sort of both. One last tweak you might want to make is in the line thickness. So I'll just jump back to here. Wireframe, line width. So if you set this to, let's say, 2.0, it'll just be a little chunkier, let's say, right? Which can sometimes be helpful if the lines appear very, very thin and faint. Although if you have, again, very dense areas, it can be extra hard to see that mesh.